What's up, everybody? We're back with another video today. My name is Mal. I'm joined by my partner, Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going good. It's been a little bit of a crazy day with these mechas, but still a good day.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to the mechas, we're gonna get to the bear market, we're gonna get to the value. And I mean, first, I just want to say I'm proud of you. Um, for going in ham on an NFT. Yeah, we'll save the mechas for a little bit later. But first, let's start with like Coinbase and the Coinbase NFT project, which was subtle but not so subtle yesterday, with everyone um, throwing their links, myself included. I apologize, trying to get ranked, but the pre-list for Coinbase NFTs. When we think about the largest market or one of the largest markets available, publicly traded company who is compliant with SEC regulation coming into the NFT market, and the assumption that the pre-list is some sort of ranking to give some sort of airdrops. It's an interesting time to see the maturation, and you and I have talked about this a lot, that NFTs are going to be the delivery vehicle to bring crypto to the mainstream, which everyone thought crypto would bring itself, but now it has a vehicle to pull it through. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. It was weird, the timing, because, at least in my eyes, because there was also a rumor floating around, and I haven't qualified the rumor or vetted it at all, about OpenSea potentially taking USD via Visa. So that rumor was floating around yesterday, and then today we get or yesterday, I guess we also got the news about Coinbase. And then I found out about it last night. And then another interesting little tidbit of news is Nifty Gateway is talking about supporting verified projects as well. So now we're going to have potentially three big gorillas: Coinbase, OpenSea, and Nifty Gateway, all accepting USD, all accepting ETH, all trying to fight for Nifties. So it's going to be really interesting how this plays out. OpenSea was kind of a big behemoth, but nothing compared to um, Coinbase. I saw some numbers like, if you consider, maybe if you generously give OpenSea 400K wallets, Coinbase has like 80 million registered users. So it's like order of magnitude of difference with Coinbase potentially. And, Coinbase gets a lot of hate. Um, I personally am a fan of Coinbase. I think they've really navigated complicated waters in order to, make crypto attainable for normal people. And they've done a great job with that. And so I think we all kind of, whether you want to use Coinbase or not, we all kind of owe them a little bit of credit for how they've mainstreamed crypto over the last
And
couple of years.
legitimized, like
For
in the
sure.
fact that they were able to file S1s and go public and everything else. Like they were able to thread the needle that others weren't able to yet.
Hmm. Absolutely. And so now they're going to play their hand on Nifties. So I'm really, really curious to see how this is going to play out. It's going to be a lot of potential money that can be thrown like at Nifties. I'm wondering, like, will you be able to use your Coinbase balance directly to buy a Nifty?
Well, this is crazy because there was a Rafik Anadol release not too long ago, and it was on Flow, which like I was upset about because I found out after the fact. But and I need to pull up the website, and I'm not going to do it because I want to focus on this statement. But what was really interesting is that I was able to, just like PayPal, I was able to use my Coinbase balance, and it gave me a spot window. Like you have 60 minutes, and we're gonna spot check the value of your Ethereum and handle the conversion to fiat, Euro, USD, or Flow to whatever the value was at that time. And so I think Coinbase is taking the approach of being like the PayPal or any of the other companies out there, that if you do have currency in it, you can use it. What's interesting about this is like the conundrum of, there's a lot of people that are cash rich and ETH poor. There's a lot of people that are cash poor and ETH poor. Um, And then there's like a lot of people that are ETH rich and cash poor. And so like being able to navigate those three things, like this Coinbase Cash piece is really interesting, because if they can navigate the center point, and you and I were talking about this before we went live, like NFTs pulling Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I say Bitcoin just because we've been focusing on Stacks. So shout out to Trevor. Stacks is going to be huge. That's something we should talk about as well, is like Stacks is going parabolic, but that is neither here nor there for this conversation. But what's really interesting for me is like becoming that liaison between NFTs, fiat, and ETH is like making it translatable. And Nifty Gateway was first, and they did a fantastic job. And onboarding other projects is really great. Trey, if you're listening, please add our culture token to Nifty Gateway. That'd be awesome. But it's just an interesting time to see this. And what else is interesting is like the purists who are like, why would OpenSea accept Visa? Like they're angry about it. Like, why would you allow credit cards? And like, there's a lot of risk there. It's like, because a lot of people with credit cards are now buying NFTs, and then they have a credit card bill and they're selling stuff at a loss. It could bring down markets, which is partially what we saw with some of the, crashes in March, April timeframe. But then you see the Coinbase, which is, not your key, not your wallet, but it's still your NFT. Hypothetically, I'm curious, like, what you think about this dynamic.
And it's going to be real interesting to decipher. And I mean, Coinbase just how many people they're going to open it up to. It's going to be a lot of buying pressure on everything. And will people actually use it? Another thing. Like Nifties are kind of like cryptos are hard enough or crypto in general is kind of hard enough to get over that scam hurdle, like every single person in crypto, or like I'm going to say 99% of people in crypto, there was a phase where you were like, there's no intrinsic value to this. It's a scam. And you have to get through that on your own first before you liked crypto. With Nifties, it's replaying that whole dynamic. Like, once again, people are selling JPEGs. It's a scam. Everybody who's going to be like in the Nifty world has to get over that first and kind of realize the value of digital property ownership. And it's even more obscure than just money. Like, everybody has a grasp of what money is. Not a lot of people have a grasp of what ownership is. So once again, we're going to be in this same kind of weird world where there's going to just be a fresh wave of people telling us, you're paying what for a JPEG. So that's always kind of the negative side of it. But the real question is, like, how many people on Coinbase are open enough to the idea of Nifties to have a big impact?
Well, it's interesting because to that point, like Binance was first, right? And I would have bought some on there, but like I didn't. Like there were complications, and when you think about all of the nuance to that, like just because if you build it, they will come isn't always true, right? There's still that speculation. So there's like these two contradictory ideas that I have. And one of them is like the more people that can buy NFTs, the better. But there's also like the pumpers and dumpers, and we're seeing the pumping and dumping mechanisms. And this is another topic I want to talk about, and I don't want to get there yet, about DeFi or NFT wrapped DeFi, or DeFi wrapped NFTs, where it's just DeFi disguised as an NFT, which we're seeing with a lot of the stakings. And I have a couple staked tokens, and I believe in them. But it's like, if we get to 100% staked for this currency output, like, is that really good? That's debatable. And so we have these simultaneous things going on where we have a lot of people wanting to make NFTs a lot more accessible to everybody. And then we also have like these games where it's like get rich quick schemes, like the ICOs in 2017. And both of them are happening simultaneously. And like, I believe firmly that NFTs are life. Like NFTs are the future. I make this statement all the time. Like my children will look at me when they're 18 and say, "You didn't own the character you bought in Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm or World of Warcraft or any of these other games." No, I had a license to it. When they canceled the game, I had to go buy the same character again on the next year's version. Like all these things make it self-evident that like there has to be this fundamental DeFi movement. But then when you look at the pumping and dumping and a lot of stuff that's happening right now, where there are a lot of people that can manipulate markets and they do manipulate markets and they can crash a market, there are some segment of this community that are going to come in because of Coinbase. They're going to buy an NFT for fiat. They're going to sell it for ETH. They're going to put it in their MetaMask, and they're going to buy a bag, and then that bag for 4 ETH, and that bag is going to be worth 0.0001 ETH. And they're never going to buy another NFT again, or they're going to wait a very long time. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we try not to neg projects, but we try not to also talk too openly about projects, because when you think about alpha and pump and dump, like alpha's great and alpha's fun, but like today's alpha is tomorrow's, yesterday's news, and those types of things, because the things move so quickly. And it's really interesting. We want to be able to provide roadmaps we believe in, and sometimes less roadmap makes it more believable. But it's a really tough conundrum that we're in right now. And to finish my point and then get back to your point, it's like, and I was trying to pull up the graphic when we were talking, it's like when you look at the volume of OpenSea right now, and the volume of OpenSea is completely insane. Like when we think about like the amount of people that are spending money right now on JPEGs, it's ludicrous. Like when we think about from July, so in mid-July, we were like, it's the top. Everyone was like, it's the top, blah, 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 blah. And we were like 14 million in US.
Yeah, we thought for sure, like, and even end of August, we thought that was the top.
So then we go to August, and the mutants pop. And obviously, like, no one knew what the mutants were. No one knew, very few people knew that, like, in conjunction with you getting airdropped a mutant, that you would also able to go buy mutants. So we saw this massive peak that just sucked liquidity out of the market. And then we normalized. But I actually was working on this piece, and I want to pull it up if I can. Actually, I'm going to do something that's unplanned, and that's always dangerous. So I've been exporting some data on my own. Wow.
Looks like we lost Malachi. Sometimes his browser will crash if he shares his Discord. So I'm going to continue his. Oh, you're back.
I can't share it. Sorry.
Okay.
So I was working on a regression line in Excel, and whenever I share a Windows 10 window in the tool that we use, I can share my Chrome windows, but I can't share my other windows. So if I share this Excel or Windows window, it just breaks. But I was working on this regression line, and here I'll share this screen and hope this screen works. Is that when you think about, like, if we were to put a regression line on the daily volume, and even if I go back, like the daily volume, if we normalize the peaks and valleys, doesn't look too bad, right? And I'm not a data scientist, but like this isn't tulip mania. This isn't some insanity that's going on. And so like there is maturation. But the whole point of all of this is to say, like, if you were to put this next to altcoins and then put it next to like Ethereum and Bitcoin, it's a rounding error of a rounding error of a rounding error. The amount of volume that exists in this space is so small, which means that even though we're seeing, oh, it's a winter, oh, it's a bear, oh, it's all these things, like we have so much more upside with NFTs. It's if you believe the hypothesis that contracts, retail, tickets, video games, everything else can have upside from being non-fungible tokens, we were early. and good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see somebody M123 in the chat mentioned about whether ETH can handle the Coinbase volume. And I'm really interested to see if it's going to be more of a Nifty Gateway style, omnibus style situation. I'm not sure they've explicitly said whether it's going to be kind of more open sea where it's contract interactions, or if it's going to be Nifty Gateway style omnibus.
Yeah.
But one nice thing about and I think it was also in 123 mentioned, like sometimes Coinbase customer service can be non-ideal.
I can't see any previous comments because I got kicked out. So if you have a comment, put it back in here and I'll put it on the screen.
But so omnibuses aren't super good for customer service foibles. So there is that. But that being said, the nice thing about the omnibus is it keeps the traffic. It's almost like a private L2, which is bad for centralization, but it keeps the traffic off of the Ethereum layer 1. So in theory, depending on how Coinbase implements their marketplace, it may or may not have direct impact on the gas situation. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out.
So Maker's Place actually does it really interestingly as well. So there's a lot of things people don't understand. They just assume that Nifty Gateway's first, and that I'm a huge fan of Nifty Gateway, and I'm buying more and more back on Nifty Gateway again. In fact, I've been buying my blue chips that came first on Nifty Gateway, and we bought King. Shout out to King of Midtown and Brendan North. If you hear about this, if you're watching and you bought them, shout them out, tell them we're talking about them on stream, because huge fans of both King of Midtown and Brendan North. If you guys are in New York City, we're throwing a VIP party, which we'll be talking about November 1st before the big party. It's going to be awesome. But Maker's Place actually did something interesting where they make you pay the gas, you pay the gas up front even if you buy a fiat, and then Maker's Place, and then you have to also pay the gas to transfer it. What's really interesting about Nifty Gateway is that they pay the gas if they transfer it for you, which means you may not get it immediately. And so when you think about companies that are making it easy for fiat, I think Nifty Gateway, Coinbase and Nifty Gateway are going to take similar approaches where I buy it, but it's not in my wallet. And then if I want to transfer it into my wallet, I assume based on other things that Coinbase has done that I'll pay the gas fee, but they will let me transfer it. So I assume it will be some shared wallet or shared wallets, but I have access to that token. I could be completely wrong, but I'd bet the bank based on how Nifty Gateway set the precedent. I think they blend Maker's Place and Nifty Gateway in terms of how they do it. I think they take the first approach, but then they also make you pay the gas to move it. So if you do want to, I forget how Maker's Place says it, but they make you extract it. So,
okay, yeah, I in the emails and stuff that I read from Coinbase and on their blog, I vaguely recall the word curation coming up, and typically that's a code word for omnibus. So, or some sort of situation like that where it's not going to be automatically all contracts are available. Right. So it's kind of a hit or miss, or it's not hit or miss, but it's a two-edged sword in that, a smaller project, like even take Nifty Cult, it's hard to get something like that into one of these curated marketplaces without having some sort of inside connection. So I would say that's kind of the downside of the curation. The upside is that the gas impacts are a lot lower.
Well, to that point, it's really cool. So we had to buy our Nest graphics on, hold on, Board Nest 8 Club. We had to buy and we found out about these and we paid 1 ETH each on them, right? And what's really cool about this project is that we paid for this ourselves, and it's a good looking piece from Nest graphics, but it was on OpenSea only. And so this was actually the second piece. People don't know this.
Hey, we're losing you because can you mute it? We're losing your volume, your voice. as cool as the sound is.
Sorry. Yeah, no, like what's really interesting is that like the Mad Dog Jones burn was actually the first piece that wasn't a Nifty gateway piece that was able to be imported to. It was the one of 100 of just a cat that was done off Nifty Gateway, and then after that, this was the second piece that was able to be imported back into Nifty Gateway. And since then, they've onboarded many more pieces, and so they're working on being less curated, less controlling, and people are frustrated with that. But it's also like, if I have fiat, if I'm fiat rich and ETH poor, maybe I do want to buy certain NFTs without playing the game of populating this. And then when you also think about like risk exposure, right? Like if I have a cold wallet, a hot wallet, and I have Nifty Gateway, like could I hypothetically decrease risk? Like omnibus is always a risk factor. Like let's just call it a fact. But like so is my PC, so is my everything is a risk factor. And so by diversifying and saying, okay, if I have a certain percentage of my NFTs in not like all these random wallets, but like something that's curated that I could put on something that's easily to show that it's one person, I think this diversification is pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely like that aspect of there's some degree of, I like how you put it, having diversified kind of security approach versus putting every single thing in like your own personal wallet, even if it's protected with a ledger. There's a lot of vulnerabilities to that, or not to call out ledger, but just any kind of physical key. There's always every sort of security mechanism that's been developed for Nifties. There's ways around all of them. So it's just how much value are you protecting and how much are you spending to protect it. So having kind of a diversified strategy, like you said, is kind of is nice, and being able to hold some of your stuff on Nifty Gateway to kind of distribute the risk is kind of nice. It's also kind of allows you to open up another avenue of potential buyers, so that's also cool. But yeah, that being said, there is one big drawback, which is why I haven't really put anything on Nifty Gateway, which is if you put stuff into the omnibus, you can't sign proof of ownership with the omnibus wallet. So like, for instance, you can put your Bored Ape on Nifty Gateway if you want to, which you might want to do to, like I said, diversify your security if you have a really valuable MetaMask, or not MetaMask, but Ethereum wallet off any sort of in your own personal possession. But the downside of that is if you want to go to Bored Ape Yacht Club Fest or whatever, how are you supposed to sign the transactions to prove that you own an ape? You can't really. So you're almost relying on like Bored Ape Yacht Club to integrate whatever their validation mechanisms are with Nifty Gateway. So to me, that is kind of the reason why I haven't put anything on there. But I do like your point of, you can put a little bit on there and then it kind of spreads out your risk. So if you get compromised in one avenue, then you won't lose everything.
Yeah, and that's actually like a fairly easy fix in my opinion. And it's actually like it's a feature, not a bug, that I think like should be considered, because there's also the fake collab lands that exist now, where like if I connect to collab land with the fake collab land and I'm reckless, I could be extracted.
Oh, geez.
Where if let's say that I have a trusted wallet, and the way those wallets are designed, like it gets James Bond level to like extract from that. Like you have to have 3 people kidnapped simultaneously or more, like to extract that without permission. So like simultaneously, like if collab, like let's say I have connected keys where I've integrated my collab land with my Nifty Gateway, it doesn't have access to extract. It's a connection point. And now whenever authentic collab land connects with me, so like it's like I could see scenarios where it's like a feature where there's actually additional, it's a vault. Like I'm putting my thing in, and now like we're contradicting DeFi ideologies and everything else. but I also think that like there is some protection there that's going to come sooner than not. We spent way too long on Coinbase NFTs.
Yeah, we did.
We don't have very much more time. So like I wanted to talk about the bear market, DeFi, wrapped NFTs, and I want to talk about NFT NYC. But also I think bear market is probably what we have time left
Okay.
for.
Hey, let's just do a super quick update on Nifty NYC for anybody who might be in NYC. Just super quick. So what was the new progress that we had today?
Yeah, so if you are a NFT culture token holder or a part of the Mad Pups or a Noobs token holder, you will get access to a VIP private event. We're not competing with the late night party Monday. It's going to 4 a.m. But we will have a private happy hour from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. If you are listening and you want to come, join NFTcult.art. NFTcult.art. That is our Discord. I'm going to put that there in the chat and you guys can see it. And you will be able to join us at our VIP event, free drinks. It's going to be fun. We may, or do you get a free chicken sandwich, Michael? Other Michael, other Michael. Actually, this is a good point. Shout out to Too Perfect. Too Perfect is our mod. Too Perfect is a great mod. His name is also Mike. So I have 3 mics that I'm talking about simultaneously. But you know, I'll buy if you catch me in NYC, I'll buy you a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, if you're there and you watch this, then we're happy to buy you a free chicken sandwich. Or whatever chicken dish the place that we're having it offers. Free to anybody who watches this. Up to 1,000. We're not going to buy more than 1,000 chicken dishes.
Oh my gosh. Not gonna make it. All right, so
okay, that's our Nifty NYC update.
All right, so we've seen a bear market, right? Everyone's freaking out. And I'm looking at Oni Force because it's down to 1.5. I'm looking, and I sold my Oni Force for 3, and I thought I was awesome and brilliant, and I thought it would just back down, and then went to 7. And I looked like an idiot. But right now, when you think about Oni Force, when you think about the roadmap for Oni Force, it's like, all right, like great art, great artist, great team, lots of money. Can't bet against them. I'm watching them. 888, the New World is back down. I sold my 888 for 1.3, which I bought for 0.4. And I thought I was brilliant. And then it went to 3. Now it's hovering back at 1.5. I'm thinking, like, do I buy Oni Force or 888 or do I buy 4 or buy both? But the reason I said 4 is because you and us were talking about Meka.
Yeah.
And you saw Meka, and I called 10. I said pre-reveal 10. 10.
Okay.
I got to 8.5-ish.
But it followed the standard pattern, the standard reveal pattern, right? It climbs and climbs and up to the reveal, and then the reveal, the floor just drops out because there's going to be a lot of blah pieces. So I probably got in a little bit too high, but I'm definitely break even, worst case. But I picked up a piece right after a reveal that I got the metadata on for like 6.5, and that one is has a weapon which seems to have a higher floor. Not all the pieces have weapons, which it seems like if it doesn't have a weapon, it has to be like gold plated or just super cool looking for some weird reason in order for it to be valuable. But yeah, so the floor is down. It touched below 3 a few times today. I think it's probably around 4.2, 4.5 right now. Incidentally, John said he was going to get in, not to throw John under the bus, but John was talking big game. Like, yeah, I think it.
John.
He's like, if it drops to 4, we're all going to put it underneath and buy one. But I knew he was kind of just talking smack, so I found one I liked and I jumped in. I like mine enough so where if I end up taking a hit on it, it's not a big deal. I think I've been on and off of whether I should try to flip it or not, or just try to hold it long term. Currently I'm in flipping mode, so if I can get a quick flip, I'll probably do that. I'm not sure if it's going to sell for the flip to be worth it, so I won't be surprised if it doesn't sell at what I put it at. But I think it's the art. As far if you really are valuing Nifty projects based on art first, I think the artwork on those is extremely well done. Like it's extremely polished. All the variations that they came up with are integrated really, really, really well into their images. So as far as construction quality goes, I would say this is possibly the best one I've seen. Um,
Of a
what do you?
3D or of all?
I think all, but definitely 3D. Have you seen
I
a Have you seen a project that looks more polished than this one?
I mean, I'm a big fan, and like I'll pull it up again. Is that like I think Force looks good in terms of their consistency with the features.
Okay.
But I also think that for a 3D or pseudo 3D project, I can't. And we were talking about this before, and you were, not to call you out, but you were one of the bigger detractors of like, oh yeah, this won't be repeated past reveal. And like that's the thing is like you can run in number of Python combinations, and so you look through, this one looks good, this one looks good, and you only show 5, 10, 15. But
Mm-hmm.
then like when it comes down to like a 10,000 collection, like there's two things, like does the entire collection look good, or 90, there are apes that don't look good, and don't
Yeah.
cancel me apes, but there's a couple apes that don't look good, there's a couple
Sure.
attributes that don't play together, there's a couple that you don't
Mm-hmm.
want no matter what, right? But then does the majority of the collection look good, agnostic of the feature? Do the features break? Like, is your Yeti standing off of a planet like gravity
Yeah.
with shadows going elsewhere? Like, is there something that is offensive like that project we refuse to talk about?
Yep.
And then finally, it really revolves around rarity, right? Like, people don't realize there's the two biggest issues with unsuccessful projects is there's too much rarity or there's not enough, right?
Right.
Like so I think that the swords, the gold plated, those types of things, like what's funny is like science can tell you like pick your rare attributes, make them obvious, and put a bell curve. I either want
Mm-hmm.
my thing to be incredibly common, and there's very, 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 very few. It's very simple. It's a naked ape with no attributes. Or I want it to be very, very complex, where it's gold plated with a sword, a gold helmet, all those things. And then your distribution curve says like everything else sits somewhere in the middle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it'll solve itself. Like it's not hard to program, and no one follows it. So I think Meka is actually doing it well. The other curve that could be an issue is like instead of a bell curve where incredibly common is rare and incredibly rare is rare or complex is rare, is that if you have a distribution where you don't have two sides, that makes it easy to tell what is rare, and then everything on the left lacks rarity. And so that's why the bell curve is important. People don't realize
Yeah.
that like the commonality of lack of attributes is actually a feature. And so I encourage anyone that is watching this that's thinking about that is like you don't want it an inverse 45-degree angle or the opposite. You want some sort of bell curve, but you want the bell curve to be obvious.
Yeah. And that's one other kind of little tiny facet to that I don't think you quite touched on is like if you have it's kind of your overly rare is not good, and that's where I can't quite put my finger on whether mechas are slightly overly rare. So there's a lot of attributes, like a lot of flavors of everything, and there's obvious things that are obviously good, like gold plated stuff and silver plated stuff is obviously good, and weapons are obviously good. So that part's good, I think. But then the rest of it is really, really, really highly varied, and it's not exactly clear. I think like I've now gone through probably hundreds of them, and so now I kind of have a feel for what pieces I think look good and what pieces I think don't look good. But it makes it a little bit harder for people to just mentally value when you have to go through like 500 in order to be able to have a understanding of, like, if you don't have one of those key rare attributes like gold plated, silver plated weapon, then it's highly subjective and you have to see a whole lot. Like there's a big wide hat and a little narrow hat. And if you see a lot of them, you'll see, oh, the narrow hat kind of looks stupid. And there's some that have kind of like bigger heads and some that have heads that kind of look a little bit too small for their bodies. And those ones with the too small for their body heads kind of don't look that good.
Well,
So
that's a feature and a bug, right? Because
yeah,
it's
that's
like
kind of how I see it.
it fits in the middle. So like let's go back to apes. Like the sushi hat is incredibly rare, and I'm a huge fan. And I hope I don't appropriate everybody, but like I have an ape costume that's like a kid's costume. Like I'm not going to do anything dumb, but it's going to be here. I'm wearing my sushi hat, but it's dead ape sushi. But like when you think of dead apes, like there are two dead apes. There are the apes with the X's over their eyes. There are the apes with the coins over their eyes.
Mhm.
There's also the blind apes that have the rag over their eyes, right? And so when you think about the fact that like the orange DAO exists, when you think about like the commonality of the sushi hats, the distribution there is still enough that they're able to do it. And I think like that's one of the things everyone's like, oh, just copied the apes. And it's like, well, did it? Like, does the yellow Oni Force DAO exist? Like, were they able to create enough uniqueness? And so I think like fewer attributes, more unique is better, where it's not skinny hat, fat hat. It's still a hat. And the difference between those two isn't enough. And so the two things I think about are, can I have a bad attribute combined with a great attribute that still does that great attribute overcome the negative attribute? And like that's where the projects get it wrong. It's like, do I want to buy an avatar that I'm going to hold forever if it has a COVID mask? Do I want to live in that world?
You know, this whole like, I mean, we're definitely both ape maximalists to a large degree. So take what we say as a grain of salt. We both own apes, so we're obviously pumping our own bags here. That's our disclaimer. But one thing I do really like about apes is, like you were pointing out, there's clearly defined attributes versus like mechas. The attributes are very, very subtle. Like, what's the difference between an OG Delta Elite helmet and an OH whatever helmet? Like, one of them has, you know, like slightly different angle, and then you can have like the V on the head versus like a little shorter V on the head. Like, the attributes are very, very subtle. And while I love the fact that the collection, it's one of those things where holistically the collection is a really cool work of art because it's both varied and uniform at the same time. But on the other hand, it makes it so where a lot of I would say probably a lot more of the pieces in MekaVerse are going to fall to the floor than versus a project like Apes, where you have like, there's a whole group of people who are like Angry Eyes Club, and there's a whole group of people who are like Orange DAO, which is the background, and then a whole group of people who are like Sushi Guys, and you know, there's so many little distinct special features to that project. With MekaVerse, I think even if you look at two different swords, like the swords are very subtly different. And so it's, are you going to have a club of OG Dawn swords versus OG Square swords? Probably not. It's going to be like, I don't even know if you'll have groups form within the MekaVerse community, but then maybe it's not so much about that.
That's the other thing is like, let's not force it all to be apes. I'm going to contradict myself to say like, if MekaVerse delivers on the roadmap, who cares, right? Like that's the other thing is like, we're in this fine line between like, we're accusing everyone of copying the apes, which copied the punks. And then simultaneously like, don't be DeFi because like that's evil. And like, if you have 100% staked and you're getting token X out of it, like it's a security and there's issues. And by the way, NFT Culture token holders, we're an American-based company. We don't want to fight with the SEC. Ours is community. I hope everyone appreciates that. We're going to deliver on our entire roadmap and more. But then when you think about the fact that like there's also utility that results in a shitload of games. Like I was on with SAS earlier today talking about crypto raiders. Like I fought like Hogger and died. Thankfully, like I didn't lose.
Oh, you lost one?
No, I didn't lose it because luckily because it's Hogger. But I fought a heroic one and died. And like I'm playing this game on Polygon and I'm making choices about my inventory and my stats and my weapons and my armor. And I'm playing this game on blockchain. And so, like, if MekaVerse does all that, who gives a shit about a skinny hat or a long hat?
I know.
Or a big sword or a small sword? Because, like, if that's their roadmap and they deliver on that, hell yes, brother.
Yeah, they are very nice looking models for sure. I think there's a lot of potential for them to be used. And man, the two artists, I don't know if they're both artists, but Maddie and Matt, man, even their other art is like, I love to see such well implemented art. Like that's why we got into this in the first place, is because the art was kind of cool. And so we're like, oh, I can buy that. I don't have to go to some art gallery and buy a poster. And
now we've got Takashi Murakami's and
true.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And that's one of the things, like, we're going to be pivoting back to the art a little bit more. Like, my two passions are art and utility. And I love the PFPs. And I think that the community, like, we'll still talk about alpha and we're still going to do as much as we can. And, you know, with our friends, you know, PO, Nick and their alpha channels and everything else, like, we're going to have this whole holistic piece that's going forward. But I'm really interested to see, you know, what the future holds. And this was an unplanned, impromptu conversation, Mike. I know that we keep you locked in the closet, but
in my code dungeon.
In your code dungeon. So quick update, if you are a culture token holder, we will be doing, he's off screen. So we're going to just take him off for a minute. So we've decided to delay the Blood Forge until after we do either a mint pass or we do an airdrop, and we will go forward from there. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. We are going to be ramping this back up again. And y'all are all beautiful, fantastic people. Mike, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I got little kids running around, so I don't really want them on camera. So
I love it. All right, we're going to see everyone Friday at happy hour. It was a little impromptu happy hour. We'll talk more about the roadmap, NFT NYC. We might do a giveaway. Tune in. We love you. Good night.